Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are undertaking a truly audacious mission. We're going to strip away centuries of assumption and superstition and look directly at the cutting-edge science behind experiences we usually just call magic.
Right. And the source material you've given us is just fascinating. It's all about the hard laboratory evidence.
Exactly. Our job is to pull out the core insights, frame the statistical certainty, and really figure out what this data is telling us about reality itself.
And if you're expecting a quiet academic discussion, well, think again. What we're really looking at here is evidence for a radical paradigm shift.
A paradigm shift.
Yes. I mean, scientific paradigms are these deeply entrenched ideas, the bedrock of how we see the world. They rarely change.
And when they do,
Chaos. Confusion erupts, experts start bickering, and the ground beneath conventional wisdom just starts to shake. This is about that shakeup. It's the scientific reconsideration of consciousness, not just as a passenger, but as an active player in the physical world.
Okay, so before we go any further, we have to get our terms straight. The sources use magic and psi almost interchangeably.
They do. And the concept that ties them both together is something called non-local consciousness.
Non-local consciousness.
That's the academic term for it. It basically refers to an aspect of your awareness that isn't, locked into a specific point in space or time.
And that's the proposed mechanism.
That's the critical connection, yes.
Yeah.
The idea is that through this non-local awareness, your focused intention can directly interact with and shape the physical world. That's the how of magic.
And the sources break this down into, what, 3 different types of practice?
Precisely. 3 flavors, if you will. First, you have enchantment.
Which is?
That's the ability to mentally modulate the physical world, to shape destiny. It's what science calls mind-matter interaction.
Okay. And number 2?
Number 2 is divination. Think perceptions that go beyond normal space and time. So precognition, telepathy, that sort of thing.
Right. And the third one is a bit different, theurgy.
Yes, and theurgy is really about the internal work. It refers to practices for spiritual development, for invoking certain states of consciousness. And we'll see later how this is the key to, generating the internal state needed for the other 2 to really work. The sources call it kenosis.
Okay, let's unpack all this, starting with enchantment. I mean, how in the world does a scientist even begin to test the idea of nudging reality in a lab? It sounds like something from a movie.
It does. But in the lab, enchantment is tested as psychokinesis or PK. And we've moved way beyond trying to, move pencils with our eyes.
That's the classic skeptical argument.
It's the straw man, yeah. The real scientific focus shifted to something much more subtle, but also much more measurable, modulating the probabilities of random events.
Okay, but then you have to prove the events are truly random in the first place. That's the first hurdle, isn't it? How do you know it's not just a computer glitch?
That is a crucial point. The methodology relies on truly random number generators, RNGs, and they're based on quantum sources that are fundamentally indeterminate.
Like what?
Like the timing of radioactive emissions from a piece of pitch blende. It's unpredictable at a quantum level. So if a person's mind can influence the output of that machine, you have concrete evidence of mind-matter interaction.
So after decades of this research, what does the evidence actually say?
It says the effect is real. I mean, it's overwhelming. If you look at the old dice-tossing experiments, a meta-analysis covering 5 decades,
Yeah.
even after they tried to remove every possible bias, they threw out 35% of the studies with the biggest effects. The odds against chance were still over 3 million to 1.
3 million to 1. That's far beyond a statistical fluke.
Far beyond. And the PKRNG studies are just as strong. Researchers did what they call the kitchen sink analysis, where they deliberately included studies with the most potential flaws just to see if the effect would disappear.
And did it?
Nope. Even with all that noise, the odds against chance were still 10,000 to 1. It argues very strongly that there's a genuine interaction happening here.
But this is where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just about the machine, it's the person's mental state, right?
Yeah.
The sheep goat experiments.
Yes, the classic believers versus skeptics design. And what's fascinating is that the meta-analyses show that belief isn't just a minor thing. It seems to be central to the whole mechanism.
How central?
When you analyze the results based on whether someone was a believer or a skeptic beforehand, the combined odds supporting the belief factor are over 1 trillion to 1.
1 trillion to 1. So your conviction, your belief that you can do it is actually part of what makes it possible. That's a very strange loop.
It is, and it connects directly to motivation. The source mentions Alexander Imich, who was the world's oldest man in 2014. His lifelong obsession was to find a permanent paranormal object.
And the argument is?
That his iron will and lifelong motivation were so extreme, you could almost argue he created that outcome in himself, that he became the thing he was looking for.
That deep motivation seems to be the key to unlocking that state of consciousness.
It really does. We see it in anecdotes, too, like the report of the spontaneously bent soup spoon. The person described this odd, senseless feeling of hypermotivation right before the metal just folded.
Oh, and this isn't just about inanimate objects. It moves into biological systems, too.
Absolutely. There was a double-blind study with oolong tea blessed by Buddhist monks. The people who drank the blessed tea reported a big mood boost. But here's the kicker.
What?
The effect was strongest in those who believed the tea had been treated. The odds against chance were 50,000 to 1. So intention was the modifier, but belief was the accelerator.
And then there's the mustard seed result, which is just staggering.
That's the 10 trillion to 1 result, yes. Water blessed by monks was given to these plants. It was a proper double-blind study. The technicians had no idea which water was which, and that water promoted superior growth. The odds against that happening by chance, 10 trillion to 1.
That's hard evidence of intention affecting a complex living system. Okay, let's shift to the second category. Divination. Perceptions that transcend space and time. And you really can't get into this without talking about retrocausality.
Right. Retrocausality is this extremely counterintuitive idea that the future can influence the present.
It sounds like pure science fiction.
It does, but it has real theoretical support from quantum physics, from delayed choice experiments. The idea is that if consciousness is non-local, then maybe enchantment and divination are just two sides of the same coin, operating outside of linear time.
And the most compelling evidence for this comes from the presentiment studies.
Exactly. The design is so simple, so elegant. They measure your physiological responses like skin conductance.
So your nervous system's arousal.
Yes. They measure that before you see a randomly selected image that's either calm or, highly emotional. They're looking for the body to react to the future.
And what do 56 of these experiments show when you put them all together?
They show that the nervous system does react. It prepares itself before the emotional image appears. The combined odds against chance for this are, well, it's a number that's hard to even comprehend, 11 decillion to 1.
An 11 with 45 zeros.
Exactly. At that point, you can't just call it noise. It is a measurable phenomenon. Your body knows what's coming before your conscious mind does.
A gut feeling, but one you can measure in a lab.
Precisely. And we see hints of this in the real world, too. A 2024 study in PNAS found that professional investors' unconscious brain activity in the reward center of the brain actually signaled future stock performance.
So their brains knew if a stock would go up or down, even when they themselves couldn't consciously predict it better than flipping a coin.
That's right. Involuntary financial divination. Which brings us to remote viewing, or RV.
This is a long history, but what do the aggregated lab results show?
A meta-analysis of 40 different RV studies is just astounding. The cumulative odds against chance reached 136 novendecillion to 1. That's 136 followed by 36 zeros. The confidence that psi perception can transcend space and time is immense.
And people have actually used this for things like the stock market.
Yes, something called associative remote viewing, or ARV. By using it to make binary predictions, groups have reported hit rates around 63%, where chance is 50%, and that has led to significant profits.
Okay, what about mind-to-mind influence, telepathy? The sources talk about glamoring in the Ganzfeld experiments.
The Ganzfeld protocol is the gold standard for testing this. You have a receiver and total sensory deprivation.
The ping-pong balls over the eyes, the white noise.
Exactly. And a sender in another room concentrates on an image. Across 109 studies, the hit rate was 31.4%, where chance is 25%.
And the odds on that?
The combined odds against chance are 2.96 trillion to 1. The signal's faint, but statistically, it is definitely there.
And we're even seeing the physical evidence for it in the brain-to-brain correlations.
Yes, especially in people with strong bonds, like identical twins. Studies show that their brain activity can actually align when one is stimulated, even if they're completely isolated from each other. The hardware itself seems to be non-locally connected.
So the evidence across all these categories is statistically just off the charts. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. If the science is this robust, why is a subject still so aggressively ignored?
That takes us back to history, to what the sources call the disenchantment. It wasn't an accident, it was a strategic political move.
You mean with Galileo?
Largely, yes. To avoid the wrath of the Catholic Church, which claimed consciousness and spirit as its domain, Galileo made a strategic separation. He said science will only deal with the objective, measurable, physical world.
He threw consciousness out of the lab to save science.
He did. And that created a dogma that's lasted for centuries.
Mm.
That the world out there exists completely independent of us. An ontological confusion shared by, as one source puts it, professors, babies, and dogs.
And now quantum physics is saying the professors were the ones who were confused.
Precisely. We're now realizing that space-time and matter might not be fundamental at all. They might be emergent properties of consciousness.
Okay, so if we accept this new picture, what does all this evidence tell us about how to practically do it? What are the key factors for success?
This is where we circle back to theurgy. The sources boil it down to three essentials for what they call practical magic. First is belief, which we saw with the sheep-goat studies. Second is practice. And third is gnosis.
That transformative, non-ordinary state of consciousness.
Exactly. And theurgy is the toolkit for getting there. Beyond that, you need focused attention, clear intention, imagination, motivation. But the goal is something described as effortless striving.
Effortless striving. What's that?
It means you hold this powerful, super-amplified goal, but you hold it with a light, effortless wish. Not with brute mental force. It's about alignment, resonance, is the whole idea behind charging an amulet or a talisman.
I love the practical example of this from the sources, the one about word magic and the author's pollen allergy.
Oh, it's a fantastic story. The author has terrible allergies, and a naturalist tells him to get to know the pollen-producing plants by name to make them friendly.
So he literally starts walking around calling the wild oats Walter and the foxtail barley Fred.
He does. And the result was astonishing. He, a guy who normally needs a ton of antihistamines, had no allergic reaction after that walk. It's a striking example of how changing your perceived relationship with something can change its physical effect on you.
So when you pull it all together, what does this all mean for us? The evidence for science seems undeniable. We're forced to accept that non-local consciousness is real.
It is. And the implications are profound. The sources point out that these noetic experiences, this gnosis, it tends to lead to positive personality changes, more compassion, more empathy, more pro-social behavior.
So the study of this could be a key to solving our biggest problems, which all stem from how we see ourselves and the world.
That's the argument, that this is the upstream problem.
Which leaves us with a final and frankly kind of unsettling question. If these abilities are real, it's not a question of if magic works, but is humanity mature enough to handle it? Or will it just lead to what one source calls combat magic that rends the fabric of reality?
That is the ultimate challenge. And maybe the first step toward a mature answer is to simply take it seriously, to dedicate real resources to it.
Like what?
The proposal is to dedicate just delented 0.01% of the worldwide annual science budget to this. A tiny fraction.
What would that be?
About $250 million a year, dedicated not to exploring outer space, but to this serious interdisciplinary exploration of inner space.
The true moonshot, not for the stars, but for the mind.